we'll start now.
Yeah, okay. Are we ready? Okay. Can everyone turn on their mic when they're asked to speak? In the meantime, and the rest of the time, if you can kindly stay on mute, that would be great. But let's get started. I think we have some attendees here waiting. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to our 4th Global Media Campaign and UNFPA webinar series on FGM under COVID. Co-hosting with me today is Sadia Hussain, one of the leading FGM campaigners in Kenya and beyond. Sadia, why don't you come in and greet everybody?
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Sadia Hussain from Kenya.
Thank you. So over the next hour, we will explore the role of religious leaders and the role they play in ending FGM in Kenya and Nigeria. We will learn and unpack their experiences, approaches, success stories from their End FGM campaigns. But firstly, I'd like to invite all of our guests to introduce themselves. Firstly, with your name, location, and why you think it's important to end FGM. Starting with, let's start with Reverend Muti.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm humbled to be here this afternoon. I'm Reverend Father Joseph Mutie, the General Secretary of the Organization of African Instituted Churches Kenya chapter, and also the Chairman of the Interreligious Council of Kenya. I'll begin by saying that it is an harmful practice which should not be encouraged. It is neither religious nor neither Christianity nor Islam nor any religion claims that they are the ones who founded or established it. So neither.
Papa, don't go far. You will come here.
Sorry.
Come and sit down here.
Go ahead. Sheikh Haroon, may I ask you to mute your mic? So apologies, Reverend, go ahead.
So I would say no nation, no culture, no tradition claims that they are the founders or owners of FGM. Neither do we have it in our scriptural or religious books. And therefore, it's an harmful practice that, at the end of the day, harms our women and young girls, and it should be discouraged.
Thank you very much. I will now give the floor to Ustada Fatima. Ustada Fatima, can you introduce yourself, your location, and why do you think it's important to end FGM?
Yes, and my name is Ustada Fatima Mohammed, and I live in Kenya, and I work in Northeastern Province, and whereby these kind of practices are going on. And Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, I want to eradicate this kind of practice because it has a lot of harm and a lot of problems.
I think we've lost Ustada Fatima, but I'm sure she'll be back. Can you hear? Yes, we can. You're back. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. My main aim of eradicating this is it is very, there is no, as my brother said, allow that it to be there. We are against it and we will fight until the end.
Thank you very much, Ustada Fatima. How about Dr. Wilberforce Oti? Over to you.
My name is
Pastor Dr. Wilberforce Oti. I am in Nigeria, and I am very passionate about NFGM because I have come to realize so many things that they go through when they pass through female genital mutilation. So my passion, my motivation is to make sure that no other girl is caught. And that's why I have to leverage on the fact that once one is a cleric, he has a lot of influence to shape the minds and the convictions of people. And we can utilize the same to make a difference in this generation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Sheikh Lathume, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And good afternoon, everyone. And for maybe some of you, it's morning, I don't know. My names are Ibrahim Lethome Asmani from Kenya, specifically from the Maasai community, but interacted with the Somalis so much, people call me Maasai warrior, meaning a mixture of a Maasai and a Somali. I've been in this campaign from 2006, and the main reason is I felt very confused when somebody said that this harmful culture or cultural practice is part of Islam. So my passion has been to delink the practice from Islam, just to show the world that this cannot be an Islamic practice because of the harms that it causes to the girls and the women. So that's the passion that drives me in this campaign. And let me say this, I've been working very closely with Ustada Fatima and of course Sister Saadia. Shukran.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, thank you. And finally, last but not least, Sheikh Dr. Haroon. Please introduce yourself, tell us where you are and why do you think it's important to end FGM? Kindly unmute yourself. We can hear you now, Sheikh. Continue.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Sheikh.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you
Can
very
you hear
well,
me
Sheikh.
now?
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear
My
you.
name is Sheikh Dr. Haroon Ogbonnia Aja. I am in Nigeria, a state called Ebonyi, in the southeastern part of the country, Nigeria. I joined this campaign to end the FGM because my religion, Islam, is more than a religion. Islam is more than a religion. It's a comprehensive way of life, and it is against any practices that affects man life, which could be regarded as an infringement of human rights. And female genital mutilation stand as one of the harmful practices anybody can be meted to. That is why, as a Muslim, I think this battle, in addition that Islam is against it because it's not a practice of religion, and there is no any injunction from the Quran that authorize it. Even the hadiths that made any mention to it are all weak hadith. So no Muslim can say that female genital mutilation is Islamic. And that is why we all have to join hands to fight this pandemic.
Thank you, Sheikh Haroon. We will unpack that and delve into that deeper later. But thank you all for your introductions.
I've finished. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Yes, you finished one part of the introduction. You know, we still need your input, so please just mute yourself for now. And just to remind everybody, including myself, why we're here today, more than 200 million women and girls have undergone a form of FGMC in 30 countries, in Africa, in the Middle East, and in Asia. These survivors are subjected to an array of short and long-term physiological and psychological traumas because of female genital mutilation. FGM is mostly carried out on young women and girls from infancy up to the age of 15 years old. And according to a recent UNFPA report, a further 2 million girls are at risk of FGM because of this COVID pandemic. There are many communities that believe that FGM is a religious requirement, even though FGM predates all religions. And now we will play a short film just to set the scene for this webinar, and hopefully it would spark some hearty debates and an opportunity for us all to learn from our esteemed guest. So we're going to play a short film, and then we will come back with some more questions, and hopefully we'll open the floor to our panelists. So let's watch this short film, and then I'll be back.
معه كخود ختنا كلابي تشتكي وانا وردا هنا مو مس بريانو حسب فيك تشوف ختنا كي وش حسب ليش كنا حمامس ko wada ba gogol sanati sunna ni ladan ni ko la o kin sunna da ida waro sunna kai ko islama ko kidde o ku ngana ke wala molo kristu be nu ga do wala wanyangi ngade gumundo alimame nu ngana ta ga to na wara kuna wala pakenya le kanta wala
We need influential religious leaders to make that clear to people that this is not a religious application.
Female genital mutilation. The pictures were so horrible, I didn't want to show it. This is what I see every day.
musula no abe digumba si musoya konna ma abe bana usama na mikro munu kanga ta musoya konna no an ku to ala ni fa mana kusba kana biga sa ko yimi msika am balika ko
ulumaduna markaas waa iskaashan lahayn saxaafaduna markaas warkana ka qaad lahayd arrinta waa ka mugaysiinay
Some of them believe if they don't do it, the gods will kill them. And they believe they must appease the gods before they stop doing it.
Science has done a lot of research and they've discovered that it does more damages to the female than good. Put an end to female circumcision. Are you with me? Yes,
In my community, FGM is practiced as a religious requirement. As a campaigner, they believe that you are just introducing Western cultures. For me to convince them, I had to now bring in people who are highly respected.
I've seen a lot of changes in my community since I've begun engaging the religious leaders.
Talking through media was even more powerful.
Muslim leaders have delinked the Islamic religion from female genital mutilation, saying the act is sinful.
The circumcision of women is not allowed in Islam.
When religious leaders talking about the holy books does not talk about female genital mutilation, that's what really helping me towards ending FGM.
L'excision n'a rien à voir avec la religion. Absolument pas. Même Bouti Hadith Adouon.
Je profite de votre antenne pour rappeler tous les leaders religieux, qu'ils soient musulmans, chrétiens, protestants et même des religions traditionnelles africaines, eh bien, à nous mettre ensemble pour que cette pratique répréhensible et condamnable, évidemment, soit complètement éradiquée.
Honestly speaking, engaging the religious leaders is key towards ending FGM.
That's thank you for watching that film. We're now going to open for questions. Please write your questions in the chat box, and we will try our best to answer all of your questions as much as possible. In the meantime, Sadia and I will actually do that. Sadia and I will be moderating in trying to answer all of your questions as much as possible. But in the meantime, I'd like to hear some reactions from our panelists. Let's start with you, Sheikh Haroon. What are your thoughts of that film? And just tell us your thoughts and what did you think of that film? And yeah. Kindly unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Yes, can I hear you very well? I couldn't hear the question very well. I want to hear you very well.
Right, my question is just to hear some of your reactions and thoughts about the film we've just watched.
Okay. From the film I have just watched, I want to believe that from the Islamic perspective, the sheikhs there are very right that the practice is un-Islamic. And the people who were doing the practice want to believe that whatever the religious leaders have told them is the correct position. So they will be ready to accept any verdict from the Islamic leaders about the female genital mutilation, which they have been told in clear terms that Islam is against it and it should not be practiced. That is what I found out from the film.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Reverend Mutia, your thoughts on reactions to the film, please.
Thank you. It's a nice clip that is very informative, and it is generally speaking or talking on the nature in which FGM takes place. It first speaks on how it's a secret, it happens in secrecy. Again, how it is shameful to speak about it. It is associated with the ancestors. It is appeasing, I don't know, the gods. It's a sin sometimes to talk about it. It's also a curse. And I also hear from the religious leaders who actually speak very well that it is not a religious requirement. But I'm happy that the doctors have also entered in and spoken about. I want to believe the clip that they were showing was the pain, or indicated the pain that our women and young girls go through as you know, they are taken through the process of female genital mutilation.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Ustadha Fatima, I would love to hear your thoughts. And kindly unmute yourself, please. Maybe whilst you're doing that, we'll try and go to Dr. Wilberforce for his thoughts, and then we can come back to you, Ustadha Fatima.
Okay. Can I speak?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Right.
We can hear you.
All right. My take is watching that shows me how helpless little girls are when they are to be subjected to FGM. They tend to have their choice in the hands of the mothers and the elders, who are also victims of ignorance. Because many of those mothers and aunties that are there, many of them do not understand the physical, mental, and emotional consequences of FGM, and how they all believe that these things are interwoven with religion, which is in error. But I'm happy that all the people that voiced out their conviction, both in Christian faith and Islamic faith, they all said that there is no place in the holy books where female genital mutilation is allowed. And that also go a long way to tell me that if the clerics, both from Islamic faith and Christian faith, will come together and convincingly talk to the people who are under them, majority of them will have a change of view. And that could seriously bring down the rate of FGM in the world all over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we have some questions coming in, so we'll try and address them. Firstly, I'd like to speak to Sadia as a reverend or veteran. I said you're not a reverend, but a veteran campaigner. How have you been able to convince religious leaders to go on the media? We are trying to really delve into the practicalities of this and share with fellow campaigners how they can, lessons that they can learn from you. How have you been able to be as successful as you have been with your media campaigns, as we've seen in that film? How were you able to convince them to go on the media, given that that's still something that is not widely used, religious leaders on the media?
Okay, to begin with, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, to begin with, I've been trying to engage the religious leaders because in my community, they believe that FGM is a religious requirement. And I had to do that because I believe these are people who have high influence and are respected in the community. So what I did is that I started telling them what it really is to be mutilated, what FGM really is, for them to understand. And then for the religious leaders, they focus on the Holy Quran and the Holy Bible. So if the practice is not in the Bible nor in the Quran, then it's easier for them to be engaged, because for them to convince the community is by them telling them what is the reality when it comes to religion. And I started sharing also my personal stories and other stories of survivors. That's how now we managed to speak to them. And they also took it as a responsibility to speak about female genital mutilation. Wherever I go, and whether it is a conference, it's a community outreach, and whether it is even in burials, in funerals, I always make sure that there is a religious leader who speaks about female genital mutilation. Yeah.
Thank you, Sadia. Ustadha Fatima, are you able to hear us? And are you able to unmute yourself now? Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So I'd like to hear from you. What approaches are you using in your community that is working?
Okay. And my approach is Islamic lecture. We do lectures for female, and we do madrasas, and also in the mosque, the women wing, and we do in the lectures and telling them about this harmful practice, which has no any basis in the religion, and people are hiding under that shade of religion, which is not there. So we normally give them Islamic classes, and whenever they say it has been mentioned in the Quran, we ask them come with in any single verse showing and talking of that issue. And also sometimes we have challenges among ourselves as religious and teachers, and they challenge us, but Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, for the help of our colleagues. I did not mention, but Sheikh Lethome was one of the people who were the journey of my success. In 2005, he started with us in Wajir, approaching and religious leaders. From there, we started to have a unique way to talk among ourselves, which is easier way to convince among ourselves as religious leaders than to reach the community, while maybe somehow we are united for them to be able to listen what we are talking about. And I think the place we started was very, very far. We used to talk of, in 2005 and 6, we used to talk of FGM only. But now we are talking of eradicating the all methods of FGM. We have this category called CAT in our community, and they based that one in Islam, that there is a cat, a single cat, small cat. We get to that point to the extent we included FGM and stroke letter C, which means no more cat. And our level of fighting FGM in our area, it is up to that extent. But you cannot eradicate it once. It came from a long way. People in our area, especially northern Kenya, and especially northeastern province, the majority of community who live in that area are Muslim, and 99% are Somali tribe, which we came, me and my sister in Saudiya from. So
can I ask you, Ustadha,
we have some challenges, but
sorry,
yes,
if you don't mind, we can't see you very well. Can you kindly shift your computer so we can see you better? And also, if you don't mind, looking at the lens so we can see you much better. That's much, sorry. As well as hosting, we're trying to make sure that everyone is seen as best as possible.
Sorry?
That's much better. Great.
Am I? Okay.
You look great.
Do you see me now? Okay.
Yes, very well.
So, okay, continue.
Thank you very much. So we can now move on a little. We want to move on, if that's okay.
So, my dear, in the work we are now, we are doing our work normally, although we don't have that much capacity. Are you getting me now?
We are getting you, yes. Thank you very much for that input. Okay. We really appreciate it, but we will come back to that issue of capacity. As you can see, we have two faiths, two countries with us today. And I'd like to hear, we can hear you very well, Ustadha Fatima. I'd like to maybe ask some of the other panelists a question, if that's okay. As I said, that we have two faiths, we have two countries with us here today. I'd like to hear some interfaith approaches or strategies that you could share with us on the issue of eradicating FGM, and what kind of campaigns have and also because this could be really an interesting approach for campaigners, and that could be also amplified on the media. So perhaps I can hand the floor over to Dr. Wilberforce in Nigeria, if there's any sort of interfaith approaches or strategies that, when it comes to ending FGM, that you might be able to share with us.
Okay, in Nigeria, the first thing I discovered is that we need to change the narrative. A lot of clergymen, especially among us in Christians, I belong to the Pentecostal. I'm actually the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigerian state chairman of Ebonyi State with over 420 churches. So we tend to focus our mind only on how to make people to go to heaven. That's all. Tell people to avoid sin, live a good life, love your neighbor, go to heaven. But we need to change that narrative and begin to make our fellow ministers to know there's a lot for us to do here on earth before we eventually go to heaven. So the first thing is to be thoroughly convinced. Many people are not really convinced that FGM is a harmful practice. So when I was invited about 5 years ago in 2006 to Ibadan, I have been hearing about FGM, but not knowing exactly the harmful effects and the adverse effects that our girls go through when they undergo FGM. It was in that academy that my eyes opened. I was so in pain. It was such a painful thing to watch the traumatic experience people are going through. So that gave me inner conviction. When I came back, I began to share the same conviction with people. The first thing I did was to write letters to some people, send them emails. The second thing I did was to visit them individually. In such visits, at times I would go with a clip which they will watch, and they will see how this thing is being performed and how the thing leaves people with little or no hope, sexually and otherwise, and expose them to all manner of harmful experiences. And the third thing I do is to now begin to appeal to these reverend ministers and ask them to use their pulpit and also their platform. Some of them are already in radio stations with one program or the other, how they can use it to address FGM and tell their adherents not to practice it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilberforce. We will go back, we'll come back to your other amazing approaches. I'd like to also bring on board Reverend Muti of Kenya. If you could maybe share some of those interfaith approaches, kindly.
Yes, well, FGM has been with us for quite a number of years. It does not only affect the Muslim community, but it also affects the Christian community and the many other women in the country who are in the so-called tradition and cultures. I want to appreciate Madam Sadia. In the recent past, she has been very vocal and engaging us to speak against this. But initially, as I said earlier, I'm the General Secretary of the Organization of African Instituted Churches. The African Instituted Churches leadership claim, and it is true, they are the custodians of the African culture. So with that in mind, we have worked together with the leadership of the churches to speak against the myths and the misconceptions, because that is what informed the practice of, this FGM. And many have been, ignorantly, if I would use that word, with a lot of innocence, standing for the practice. But in the recent past, we have worked with the different church leaders to condemn, and because it's a rite of passage, we have had to come up with alternative rites of passage with those communities that have been practicing FGM.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Thank you very much. I'd like to now go to some of the questions that are coming in the chat boxes. So we have one from an anonymous attendee who's asking, how do you use media to reach out to the community? So this goes to any of you that want to answer. You could just put your hand up and you can answer. How do you use media to reach out to the community? Perhaps Dr. Wilberforce can answer that question. Can you try to?
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, media being one of the most important tools that is being used to propagate the gospel. What we do is to now, in the middle of whatever you are sharing to the people, you will need to remind them there's an ongoing practice that is not right, which we need to stop. And I can tell you that in some of the media within Ebonyi State, on hearing me, some of them ask me to even, without payment, talk about it and tell the people. So we use both social media, television stations, and radio stations. The important is that once people begin to believe in you and they know you have a voice and you always direct them to do the right thing, if they hear you still speaking against FGM, they will believe you the more. Thank you.
Great. I'd like to ask the same question to Sheikh Luthumi. How do you use media to reach out to the community?
Thank you very much. One thing, the power of the media cannot be underestimated, because through the media, you reach out to so many people. Of course, as religious leaders, we have other platforms, like the mosque is one platform, but not everybody will listen to you in the mosque. But with the media, you can reach out to to more people in their homes, in their places of work, and even in their social gatherings. So the way we use media is, number one, make sure you have the right messenger. The person carrying the messenger has to be credible. Number two, the right message. The person has to carry the right message. For example, for us as Muslims, I know it is practiced across the religious divide, Christians and Muslims, but the experience we have in Kenya is that for those who are not Muslims, mostly they practice it because of cultural reason. I come from the Maasai community. My mother went through it not because of Islam or not because of Christianity, it's because of the culture. And it is easier to convince people to live a harmful cultural practice than a religion. But for the Muslim community, it's a mixture of culture and religion, and you don't know where to bring the divide. So use the media, but you have to prepare for the people who are going to the media. Make sure they are credible people who can talk with authority when it comes to religious matters. You have to train them also. Don't take it for granted that every religious leader knows what you want to convey out there. They could go there and mess you up completely. For example, for many Somali scholars, for a long time, they thought we are talking about type 3, the pharaonic type. FGM is the pharaonic type. You need to prepare them. But the media has proven to be a very powerful tool to correct the misconceptions about religion and FGM, because religion has been both a tool that has been used to perpetrate the practice. People fall back into religion. And you know how emotive religion is. So religion now, we have discovered that religion also, whatever has been done by religion can only be undone by religion. And who are the gatekeepers when it comes to religion? The religious leaders. And that's why I want to congratulate my sister Saadia. She has really made use of the media, but most of the time, her face doesn't appear there. It is the face of the scholars that appear there, because you want the message to come from a credible messenger. So the role of the media here should not be underestimated. It's a powerful tool if properly used.
Very true, very true. Thank you for that input. So I'd like to ask another question from one of our attendees. What are some of the innovative approaches that you have taken to end FGM during the coronavirus crisis? Do you use technology and does it work? It would be great to hear maybe from Sadia on that, and how I know there's been quite a large outbreak, especially in parts of Kenya, so yeah, it would be really useful to hear from you. What are some of the innovative approaches used, and also particularly during the COVID crisis?
Thank you so much. During COVID, what we use is that we use the local radios to reach huge number of people. And in fact, during COVID or even post-COVID or even before COVID, using the media has been very impactful when it comes to ending FGM, because with community outreach, the maximum of people you can reach is just maybe 1,000 people. But through local radios, you can reach hundreds of thousands of people. And through the TV, and you can now reach millions of people. So this has been very successful for us. During COVID, we have been engaging the religious leaders through the local radios, and it has been very, very successful. And people actually are now more than ever during this pandemic glued to either the local TV or the local radio because of following the corona updates and all this. So this is the best tool to use during this pandemic. That is media, which is very powerful. But now again, it depends on the kind of credible voice you are using, which is most of the time why we use the religious leaders. And also it depends on the kind of messages you are getting out there.
Thank you, Sadia.
I would urge everyone to use media in a very positive way and using the religious leaders to lead us in these campaigns. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So there's another question from an anonymous attendee asking, how do you approach people who are not convinced that FGM is harmful or not a religious practice or requirement? How do you convince them? And this can go to perhaps Reverend Muti or even Sheikh Haroon. We haven't heard from you for a while. Why don't you, I'll go to you, Sheikh Haroon. How do you convince people that FGM is not a religious requirement?
For we Muslims, we don't have much problem in convincing people about the FGM. You know, Islam, like as I've said, is more than a religion, it's a practical way of life. The Quran, the Sunnah, the Ijma, the Qiyas is a basic fundamental requirement that a Muslim needs to know what comes out of them. Now, it is not a religious requirement because there is no direct injunction from the Quran about it. And all the hadiths that I have earlier said are all weak and not authentic hadiths. The Muslims on their own, except they are not availed by these teachings of Islam. But once they are told, they are convinced because they know Islam is not a religion of guesswork or a religion of personal view, it's a religion based on evidence. So it is not difficult for Muslims to be convinced. Few of them that are not convinced. We had a conference in Kano where a lot of things were discussed, including reproductive health rights and also this female genital mutilation. It was a very hot, section for 10 days. And of course, some of those who were doubting based on the weak hadiths they were using were now convinced that automatically, even those who say you can do it in just a little way because of the controversy available and because of the hadith that was the only hadith that's prescribing that, which was not actually linked to the Prophet, that is the hadith of Atiyah, they were all known that this hadith is a weak hadith. And from there, they now dropped their views and accepted that, yes, the female genital practice is of no religion, is of no respect to a woman, is of no sunnah. Islam has nothing to do with it. And of course, they have to turn and say they were thinking, because some of these things has to do with cultural influences. Some don't do it because they want to do it. For instance, somebody asked a question which I want to bring out here, whether any of the panelists circumcise the daughter. I did not, because I know it is not a religious requirement. And even I had to monitor the villagers, because in the village it is more worse because they see it as more of a celebration when a female child is born, that they have something to celebrate her, and that is this female genital mutilation. So, like as I've said, we Muslims don't have any problem of conviction. Of course, we have what we call member sermon. Member sermon, that is a sermon we have to share to the imams, which is articulated sermon that all of them can use on the Fridays to pass. And any message passed through the mosque, it's always very effective. So most of the mosques in Nigeria, let me just use that this had this sermon, and based on that, all these articulation we had were into that sermon, and all of them for now come to be convinced that the female genital mutilation is of no Islamic practice.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Haroon. I think Dr. Wilberforce has his hand up.
I wanted to say that one of the easiest ways to convince people, which I have done in the past, is to field survivors, people that have had first-hand experience of female genital mutilation in the radio, and they will share their personal experience. In the course of sharing that, I've seen callers crying on phone. Some of them will cry weeping that they had a similar experience. No wonder they are finding so and so difficult. Secondly is to field, in addition to survivors, medical professionals who will be standing to tell people the real truth medically, what FGM is all about. I'm trying to say that there's need for synergy, because when you speak as a pastor, as an imam, as a clergy person, and people are not willing to listen, you can also, in addition, bring a survivor who will give a first-hand evidence that this is what happened to me, and this is what I'm experiencing, in addition to professional. With this, if anybody is doubting it, then that person may need to face the judgment in case the government catches the person. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilberforce. So let's have a look. We have quite a few questions actually, which is fantastic to see the engagement. We really appreciate it. So I just wanted to bring it back to just success stories. I'd love to hear some examples of success stories, perhaps through the media, perhaps offline, off the media, of how, as influencers, you were able to convince your community that FGM is a harmful practice. So it would be really good to hear maybe from Sadia, given that she's the campaigner with us. Can you share some success stories, please?
Thank you so much. One of the success stories when it comes to using religious leaders through media is that I have been able to do a press conference through the religious leaders. I have been able also to bring all religious leaders, despite their faiths, to have a summit and speak with one voice through the media by linking FGM and also condemning it with the strongest term possible. Another thing is that we now have girls who have not gone through the cut because their mothers listened religious leaders through the radios. So for me, it's a campaign that is working, and I believe religious leaders are the credible voice that we all want to hear to, because these are people who are highly respected in the community. And it's not all about just engaging them. It's about them leading the campaign and all of us joined an all-inclusive approach of using the media.
Thank you very much. I completely agree with you, Sadia. I really do think religious leaders have a really crucial role to play. But also, sorry, sure.
Yes, one more thing is that what worked for me as Sadia is because I have been getting consistent support from the global media campaign, which enabled me to also do consistent media campaigns, whether local radios, whether TV, or whether the social media. I've been very consistent in my campaigns. It's not just about bringing the religious leaders one day and then you disappear. It's about doing it consistently so that the people can understand the seriousness and the passion we have. It's not about just like engaging the religious leader and people think maybe he was or brought for that day and it's over. It should be something that is done like every now and then, whether on social media, the radio or TV. Back to you.
Thank you very much for highlighting that, Sadia, and I agree with you. It is quite important. Consistency is key. And with the Global Media Campaign, we are consistently giving out direct action grants, which are small micro grants to be able to facilitate influencers to go on air. Like Sheikh Luthumi said, it's not about the message, it's also the messenger. And it really is about amplifying that as much as possible. We are offering direct action grants to 6 countries, and we will share more details of that on our Facebook group. So please make sure you join our public Facebook group to find out whether you can apply for more direct action grants. But just to go back to this topic, religious leaders is a male-dominated space, and I really do believe female religious leaders play a really important role as influencers, given that women are the ones who are carrying the practice, and given female religious leaders have a really important role in convincing women to eradicate the practice. How can we, or as a community, as a collective community, should I say, or even as the religious leaders community, better support female religious leaders to go on the radio, to go on the TVs, to be able to be more publicly facing in the campaign to end FGM on the media? So I would really like to hear your thoughts there, Sheikh Luthumi. How can we better support female religious leaders, as well as, of course, I'd like to hear from Ustada Fatima as well on this topic.
A very important question here. You know how our communities are, and the women, the place of women. And then I keep on saying this, when it comes to FGM, women are the victims, women are the perpetrators. And when we began this campaign, actually some of our male colleagues were telling us, "Aibu on you, shame on you. This is a women issue. How are you coming in?" And you, as you put it, you said, women can be very influential. But still remember, even those women will rely on the fatwa or the direction given by a religious leader. And you know, our communities are male dominated, and we cannot change that. We are in this campaign, we don't want to change that. We want to use the structures as they are. I'm giving you my own example, how we were able to bring Sister Fatima, Ustada Fatima on board. We went there to talk to the sheikhs because we knew if we don't talk to the sheikhs and go directly to the women, we're going to have a problem. So we had to invite the sheikhs, then tell them that they have a role, because before that woman can subject the daughter to FGM, she consults with the husband, and the husband will seek the blessing from a religious leader. So the role of men, and the way somebody put it, and I'm not ashamed of saying this, the consumers of the end products are the men. So if the men stop demanding that we want a woman who has been subjected to FGM, it will end. So the role of men. Of course, the role of female religious leaders is very important, because they will be talking from their own experience. And especially if it is female scholars from the same community, not from outside, people they can identify with. And that's why Saadia has been successful, because she is from the community. Ustada Fatima, from the religious perspective, she is a female scholar. She's a scholar by her own right, and she's from the community, so she knows what she's talking about. So for me, the approach should be different stakeholders with different roles. We have to work together. If we just pick on the women alone, we'll have a problem. I remember when I spoke to you, Naima, on phone, I told you, besides Ustada Fatima, we had another lady called Ustada Khadija. She's more senior, age-wise, than Ustada Fatima. But Ustada Fatima will tell you, she was harassed by the males in Garissa, and she kept quiet. She no longer talks about this thing. So we need to bring that synergy. We need to work together. Let it not be felt like it's a women problem. And actually, when we, the men, started talking against FGM, then there was more attention, because they thought this is a problem for the women. We have nothing to do with it. But we told them, we just want you to play this one small role. Can you correct the misconceptions about religion and this practice? So we need to work together. Of course, there are things, because of our social norms and values and sensitivities, Ustadha Fatima is able to talk to the women more freely than I can do. But we need to work together. We need to support each other.
Thank you very much for that. I will come to Ustadha Fatima, but I noticed Dr. Wilberforce has his hand up, and you will go next, if that's okay, Dr. Wilberforce. Go ahead, Ustadha Fatima.
Okay, thank you very much. And shukran ya Ustad, barakallahu feek. And in fact, and when I'm saying, and Sheikh Lathome was one of my success in my journey. In fact, we are in Muslim learned, and we focus in mostly about the other part of teaching, Islamic teaching, but we don't focus about what we call about in health and these harmful practices and so on. And what happened? The first day, Jacqueline and an activist, a lady called Mariam, I like her so much. And when they came to approach me, I fought with them. I told them, what are you talking about? And we were 10 religious leaders at that time. And my husband also, he was a principal in Al-Fatah Islamic Institute. He's a graduate, but he don't tell me what is going on. When I asked him during the evening, when I came from the seminar, I told him there was a lady and some sheikhs came from Nairobi, and they told us and they asked us about FGM is not a part of Islam and something like that. He told me go to the library and go and check for your own. Whatever result you get from there, just go with it. Then I found I went to that library to fight by tomorrow morning with Sheikh Lathome, but unfortunately, or fortunately, I did not get a single evidence against him that he is fighting against FGM. Also, see.
Thank you for your contribution. Sorry, we're running short on time. So you have 30 seconds, if that's okay, to finish your point.
Okay. My last point is, as he said, we use all the tools, all the methods. And being a mother of 11 kids, having that experience, and also being an Islamic religious leader, female, I use all those methods, and Alhamdulillah, things are successfully going on.
Okay, that's great.
So I wanted to add the social one or the media one, which we are doing now, and we opened in WhatsApp forums and giving maybe 100 or 200 women in that message, and it is going on and it is very successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Dr. Wilberforce, you had your hand up, apologies.
I wanted to say that I started what is called Survivors Club. This is a group of people who survived female genital mutilation. And when I started it, I asked my wife to assist me. She's a medical lab scientist and also a pastor. So in the process of time, there were many pastors who are part of that survivors club. So I want to say that right now, we already have some female pastors who are championing this cause. And I know that with time, it's going to spread to other parts of Nigeria. And I will also encourage some of my own brothers in the Islamic faith, where they can also talk to their female clergy, who can also be part of this, because I know, like Sheikh said earlier, the women have the passion, the ability to talk to one another, and they can make a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to wrap up now. We've had a really good conversation today, and thank you very much. I've learned a lot. I'd like us all to share one piece of advice that you can give to the campaigners who are with us today. What would that one piece of advice be? I would start with the Reverend Muti. We haven't heard from him for a bit. So could if you give one piece of advice to our fellow campaigners and our listeners today, what would it be?
Thank you. I would request them or us to carry on with the fight. We will succeed with God on our side, because this is a very dehumanizing act, and it should be condemned with all possible terms and methods possible.
Thank you very much for that, Reverend. Sheikh Haroon, what would your one piece of advice be?
Yes, my piece of advice to campaigners is, as the campaign goes on in the field, we have to ensure that the victims are sourced out, just like my brother Wilberforce said. Those who are victims of this barbaric act should be sourced out from the sources, so they can also join their voices as what do I call it? As survivors. They can join their voice as victims who are also, who have tested. In fact, in terms of testimonies, they should make it, giving their testimonies in the course of talking to others on what they have suffered in the course of these practices, so as people will know that actually the harm of these practices more worse than whatever gain they can talk about. Of course, there's no gain in it, because it also affects females directly in their own women life. So we will go ahead in this campaign, and will also, like as I've said, try to see those who are victims, so as they can also add their voice for others to know that actually it's a barbaric practice. Thank you.
Okay, Sheikh Lathimi, do you have one piece of advice?
My advice would be, for us to be able to succeed in this campaign, try as much as possible to use local people who the local community can identify with, people who are sensitive to the values of the community. I'm talking from a personal experience. As a Muslim scholar, it was easier for me to deal with the Muslim community. People before me who are experts in the anti-FGM campaign, but did not know the values of the people on the ground, did not succeed. So let us take the campaign as local as possible, to the grassroots as much as possible, and respect the cultures of the people. Thank you.
That's great, thank you very much. And Ustadha Fatima? One piece of advice, please.
Yes. And my dear, you have to move and go on with your campaign. And as my colleagues mentioned, you know, this kind of practice, it is and women who are concerned more than the others. Just target and female and religious leaders, and you will get. Okay, let me talk of our area. The religious.
Can you come closer to the screen so we can hear you better, if that's okay?
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, my piece of advice is get more female religious leaders on board for you to be able to succeed. The area whereby religious leaders is needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Dr. Wilberforce.
All right. Sometime in Nigeria, killing of twins was the order of the day. Through religious leaders like Mary Slessor, it ended. I want to charge every cleric and every religious leader here and everyone who can hear us. It is our responsibility to stop FGM. We can do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Sadia, how about, do you have any last comments, any summarize? Can you summarize today's conversation for us if possible? And also one piece of advice from you.
From me, just a big thank you to all our panelists, because religious leaders, for me, I believe this is the first priority of our approaches towards ending FGM. Then from the Global Media Campaign, I want to say thank you so much for empowering grassroots activists towards ending FGM by using media to amplify their work. We really need to continue supporting grassroots activists, and ending FGM is a collaborative effort. So we really need to make sure that these religious leaders that we had today on this webinar, we continue engaging them and making them sure that they communicate the same messages they shared today here on TV and radio, so that we can change the community perception. Thank you all, to the panelists, to the attendees, to you, Naima. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for that, Sadia. And on that last note that you mentioned about supporting the grassroots, it would not actually be possible, and these webinars would not be possible without the support of UNFPA and the support with the direct action grants that we're able to give out and distribute would not be possible without UNFPA. So we would like to thank them for this and these opportunities and these conversations that we're able to have. So I would like to then say thank you all for joining us today, and thank you very much to all of our panelists, and obviously thank you to UNFPA for supporting us with these webinars. And I've definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers have learned a lot as well. So the next webinar will be exploring the role of youth, and especially when it comes to campaigning against FGM. And so please join us for the next webinar on the 23rd of July for another interactive, interesting session about working with youth. And so thank you very much. Before you all leave, can I ask you all to fill a 2-minute survey? If you look at your into the chat box, there will be a link to a survey. I kindly ask you all to fill out. It won't take more than 2 minutes of your time. It's really to help us to improve our webinars in the future, and hopefully we will address a lot of your comments by the 23rd. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you all the panelists for another interactive session, and hopefully we'll see you again on the 23rd of July. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so very much for hosting us, and bye-bye for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you, Dr. Wilberforce. I really appreciate it. Sheikh Haroon, I appreciate it. Reverend Muti, thank you.
Bye-bye.